I said, hey, fly this heading, vectors for chose the most expensive one. All the hobbies we could have chosen, we chose. Vean, les voy a enseñar cómo estilizamos este jingle. What is ETOP certification? What is the function of the pitch trim?
All right, everyone, welcome to the IFR coaching call. Time now is 1600 Central Daylight Time and 2100 Zulu, ready to get going. Everybody go ahead and turn your cameras on, please. We can see who we're working with. Deidre, hello, welcome back. Samuel, hello, welcome back. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Very good. I'm going to get my screen on Zoom recording over here. Un momento, por favor. Let's see. Going to transfer to my iPad so I can draw out. All right, I see Richard's here. Hello, how you doing? Let's see, Kunal, hello. All right. You know, I should have put two brain cells into what I was doing before I started this and had my iPad already set up, but I'm kind of a moron, so just give me a second. Copy invite link. Let's see. Several people logging on. I had about 45 people say they were going to come, so if we can get them all in here, that'd be helpful. Give everyone a few more minutes to come in. Let's see. Richard, you been flying lately?
Yes. Have you?
I have. Not as much as I normally do, but that's okay. I got lots of other stuff going on. Let's see. I'm trying to figure out how to do this. Just let's see here. I know what I'll do. I'll do this.
I'm on somebody else's computer today, so that's why I'm showing up as Andrew.
I was gonna say that is definitely not Andrew. I was like, I ain't the brightest bulb in the chandelier. Yeah, I was gonna say I ain't the brightest bulb in the chandelier, but I could have figured that one out pretty easy. Okay, I'm trying to get my iPad to where it'll share its screen, and you did this yesterday just fine, but today it's having a little bit of a problem. So I'm gonna have to text myself the link. So let me try that real quick. I'll be invite link. Text it to myself. We will get going. There we go. Wonderful. All right, cool. We'll go ahead and get started then. Does anybody, let's see here, 15 people joined in. Hello, welcome everybody to the call.
Some
this is
fun
recorded.
weekend plans
this will
ahead
all
of you.
be on YouTube later. I'm going to go ahead and mute everyone's microphones
no weekend plans
automatically now.
Like a movie.
There's something going on in the back now.
No,
So
I get it.
Mute all those.
Drive to the seaside.
All right, so now everybody is muted in the call right now. So if you need to speak for some reason, you should be able to hold down the space bar on your computer, and that would unmute your microphone temporarily, or you can unmute it by pressing the unmute button. And we'll just kind of go from there. So there shouldn't be any reason to say anything unless we're asking questions. But in the meantime, we'll go ahead and get going. All right, so yesterday, or I say yesterday, but the last time we had a call, which was on, I think, Wednesday, we talked all about VOR holds as well as DME arcs. Now, the very first call we ever did was mostly on DME arcs. It was rather complex a discussion because we had some really good questions, but yesterday's call, we kind of boiled it down a little bit more and tried to make it even simpler. Today, we're not speaking about DME arcs at all. Today, we're going to be talking a lot about VOR navigation and just the basics of what's going on there. This is not going to be a doctorate level explanation of VORs. This is going to be a VORs for dummies. Like imagine, everyone knows those yellow books that say, blank blank for dummies, right? This is going to be VORs for dummies. That's the idea. Because I'm a dummy, so I need help with VORs just as much as anybody else does. Well, not right now anyway, but generally speaking. So we're going to go ahead and do that. Someone's raising their hand. Kanchan, go ahead and ask your question.
Hey, Toby, just have a quick question regarding, not regarding VOR, but regarding the IFR stuff, in terms of
Okay.
IFR cross country. So
Okay.
the long cross country 250 nautical miles, does that have to be, is that totaling from point A to point B to point C, the whole distance from the airway, or just the total distance from, just like on VFR flight plan going from one place to another place? Could you kind of explain that?
Yeah, it's total distance. So it's not point to point. It's the entire length of your flight. So if you take off out of Miami and you fly to Orlando, and then you fly to Tampa, and then you fly back to Miami, it's that total distance. It's not.
Okay,
It's
it
not.
does say something regarding the airways, so I was just a little bit confused
It
about it
says
on
via
6160.
airways. It says via airways or ATC directed routing. So that's that.
Okay,
So that's going to be
gotcha.
6165, I think, like B or something. But yeah. So there's that.
Okay,
I'm going to go ahead and mute you back, and we'll go ahead and get going. What
cute.
we're going to do, guys, is we're going to have time for questions and everything at the end because I've got a lot of people on the call, and I want to make sure that we're able to go through the lessons. Periodically, I'll ask for attention, and I'll say, hey, does anybody have any questions? Like, does this make sense? If it does, I want you to use, or I want you to respond using the chat feature in Zoom. So I might say something like, hey, drop a fire in the chat or drop a thumbs up in the chat or something. If you do that, I'll be able to see y'all's responses to everything. And also, if your camera's turned on, I'll be able to see you nod your heads and things like that, which will be really helpful to kind of see what's going on. So, all right, if we're good to go, I'm going to go ahead and get this ball rolling. So I'm going to share my screen on my iPad, and we're going to go ahead and use this. All right. Make sure my Apple Pencil is plugged in and working. Okay, wonderful. Can everybody see the iPad? Pretty good. All right, cool. There's the iPad. All right, guys, here's the deal with VORs. It's really simple. And people like to overthink this all the time. And I'm going to boil this down to like this third grade level of what VORs are, okay? So a VOR, right, is a radio station. It's a tower, okay? Now you're wondering, oh, why do I care about this? I'm going to tell you right now, okay? Imagine this is a radio tower, right? And it shoots off a signal. Well, how does it shoot off a signal? Well, it shoots off an electromagnetic signal because that's how radios work. All radios are electromagnetic signals, and they send off these pulses, right? And the pulses leave the tower like this, like little waves, right? The receivers in the airplanes are engineered to where they're able to detect these waves of electricity. This is simple. If you don't understand how radios work and how electromagnetic pulses work, you can go look up YouTube videos about how all that stuff works. But all you need to know is that there's an electrical pulse that is felt by the instruments in the airplane. Okay, so that's how the radio frequencies work. Now, I'm going to back up significantly and boil down to what matters. These radio signals, if you are navigating to like an NDB, a non-directional beacon, they go in all directions, and there's not a particular direction that it goes to. It's just a non-directional beacon. And what it does is the airplane, sitting, out here, has a receiver, and that receiver hears the sound of the frequencies and points an arrow at where it's coming from. That's how an NDB works. So it's non-directional. It just points at the station. But a VOR is different because a VOR is directional. It can actually take those radio signals and shoot them in any direction, specifically 360 degrees. Now you're wondering, okay, Toby, this is kind of basic. Why are we talking about this? I want you to understand what a VOR is made of so that when we go into all the other parts of it and just use it for basic navigation, it will actually make sense. So it shoots off in all these different directions. And you're like, okay, cool, I get that. Well, how do I navigate with that? How does this actually help me fly the airplane? Well, I'm going to give you guys a little story. This is kind of a fictional story, but it's also kind of true. But I like to use stories to help explain points. Okay, and I think you guys are really going to understand this, especially any double eyes in the room are really going to appreciate the concept that I'm about to share. So imagine this. Imagine you are a pilot in the Luftwaffe during World War II. Okay, imagine you're a pilot in Luftwaffe, all right? And you've got, the English Channel is right here. And we're using the Luftwaffe as this example just because they actually use technology like this to do bombing raids on London back in World War II. So we can actually use this example to kind of help us out. And let's say you've got the coast of England right here, and then you have the coast of France right here. And then everything all in here, this is all the English Channel. Okay? And imagine you're on a bombing raid and you want to bomb London, which is right here. Okay? Well, if you want to bomb London, and you're going at nighttime, because, by the way, Germans typically bombed at night, all right? Or it was bad weather, right? So you got nighttime, you got weather, all these different things lead to you not being able to see, right? So your eyeballs here, right? This is your eyeballs. They don't work, okay? You can't navigate visually, all right? So you have to find some other way to navigate. So what they did is they started using radio navigation. And they had been using radio navigation for a long time in other aspects. What they would do is they would take a radio signal from a radio tower. So here's our little radio tower right here. And instead of using a signal that goes in any direction, they figured out how to point signals. So what they would do is, let's say that there was an airplane that needed to land on a runway and the weather was bad. The runway, say, is right here. Okay? And they wanted to land on this runway. What they would do is they would put a radio station, a radio tower, on this side of the runway right here. And they put a radio tower on this side of the runway right here. And these radios would actually project a beam of signal in this direction right here, and then this direction right here. Okay? By the way, I'm oversimplifying this. This is not highly technical. This is just, if we can draw this in stick figures to where we can understand the concept, that's what we're looking for. So do not correct me on like technical correction here. This is just like base. This is, if Mickey Mouse was giving you this lesson, this is what he'd say. Okay, like Barney the dinosaur, Bob the Builder. These are the guys that are teaching this lesson right now. All right. So this tower right here would put out dots of Morse code. They would go dot, 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 so on. This tower right here would put out dashes, dash, 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 so on. This is actually really cool, guys. This is how VORs and radio navigation like all started, okay? When the dots, if the airplane was on the right side of the course, in their headset, they would hear doot, 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 doot. They'd hear dots, right? And if they flew on the left side, they would hear dashes, doot, 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 like that. Pretty self-explanatory. But whenever they flew in the middle, they would hear a solid tone. It'd be just a doot. And why is that? Well, when you get to the middle, the dash right here fits right by the dot right here. It's a dash here, a dot here. And when they get close enough together, the dots and the dashes, the dots and the dashes, I'm sorry, blend into each other into straight lines. I want everyone to drop a fire in the chat if that makes sense. Drop a fire in the chat if the dots and dashes make sense. And basically the idea here is that if you hear a solid tone, you hear a point where the dashes line up with the dots and it creates a solid tone and you're on course. You're on the center of your course, which is really, really nifty, right? So let's say you drift off course a little bit and you hear a solid tone. It's like a doo, 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 kind of like that, right? So as you turn left or right, of course, the pitch will change. And this is how they guided a lot of these airplanes to the runway in bad weather. Very interesting. This is like the very first idea of an ILS or a localizer or something like that. Now, nowadays, we don't have to listen to anything. We just look at our needles. But the needles in the airplane are still using the same types of radio frequencies that these towers here are emitting. And instead of us having to listen to the sound, the box in the airplane automatically translates those sounds or those frequencies, those wavelengths, into beams that our instrument can deal with, that understands. So that's how that works. So you're wondering, okay, well, what does this matter? What does this have to do with Germany and Luftwaffe and London and VORs? What does it have to do with any of this stuff? Well, I'm so glad you asked. Let's go back up to here. The Germans figured out that if they could take one of these little radio tower deals here, which technically there's two of them, but let's just call it one, okay? If they could take this radio signal and shrink it down in size, so instead of making it, this wide right here, if they could shrink it down into something that was much finer, like, well, that's not what I'm trying to do here. There we go. Into a much smaller diameter, see? Like that. They could send it over a really, really, really long distance. So that's what they did. The Germans took these little radio deals here. They put one, say, here's a good example. We'll put a coast up here, okay? They put one of those stations right here, and they put one down here. And what they would do is they would take that beam and they would point it directly over the target they were trying to bomb. In this case, we'll say London. So this line would be drawn directly to London. So what the bombers would do is they would actually, there we go, they would take off, out of this airport over here, and they would fly, west until they heard the dots and the dashes, and they'd hear, and now they're on the line, right? When they heard that solid tone, they already knew, based on their flight planning, what course to fly. So they would fly that course. Oops, wrong thickness here. They would fly that course all the way up towards their bombing point. Pretty simple. Makes sense. Now, of course, if they got left or right, of course, they'd hear dots or dashes. Easy. Now, the question is, when do they get to their point of bombing? Like, where is their target, right? Well, just like we have intersecting radials for airways, they would use intersecting courses of their navigation equipment. So they would use something like this. And this station over here would be tuned in on their secondary radio. And when they crossed that point, they know they're at their point where the bombs need to be dropped or whatever. And I'm oversimplifying this. This is actually called the Battle of the Beams. It's actually a very interesting historical concept. So they would have their secondary radio tuned in. Sorry, my pen's wrong. Here we go. Secondary radio would be tuned in. They'd be flying along, and they'd hear dashes. And right there, bombs away. They've dropped their bombs and they fly home. So this technology is what birthed VORs. Okay? This technology birthed VORs because they realized they could take radio stations, point them a certain direction, fly that accurately, and then be able to know exactly where they were based off of one radio station signal crossing another one. It's really simple. I mean, and they're doing this in 30s and 40s, figuring this kind of stuff out. So that's basically how the airway system was designed. So in fact, if I pull up, well, I can't do it on ForeFlight. I don't have a European subscription to ForeFlight. But if I did, I would show you the airways, and I would show you exactly how these beams that they use to navigate are actually still there. They've been upgraded to VORs now instead of other things, right? But they're still there, and you can actually use them to navigate to certain fixes along the route and everything. So pretty cool, right? Drop a thumbs up in the chat if you're tracking along so far. And then so far, raise your hand if you have any questions concerning this. Nothing too specific, but if there's something about this you don't understand or you misunderstood, holler at me and I will answer that here for you. Bunch of thumbs up. I got 4 thumbs up and 20 people. So there's 16 of y'all haven't put a thumbs up in there yet. Now the chat's filling up. Okay, cool. All right, perfect. So that's the basics of what happened there. So whenever I teach a brand new instrument student how to fly IFR, I always give them this story first. This is actually ground lesson 1. So if you're a double I wondering, how do I teach instruments to my students? Tell them that once upon a time, there was a German guy who needed to fly a bomber to go drop some bombs on an English dude. All right. And when he did that, he had to use radio navigation because he couldn't see what he was doing. Basically, that's the story I tell them. And they're like, oh, okay, well, that makes sense. And then I say, we get to use this same stuff today to go where we're trying to go. Now, I don't tell them about GPS yet, because GPS, is kind of cheating as far as we're concerned right here. But if you understand this, GPS will make sense. So anyway, that's how I break that down. Now that we understand how we can use VORs for navigation simply by selecting on our radio the VOR frequency. So this is, point A, we'll say. Okay, I select that VOR, and I know, well, and I want to fly from A to B over here. But say, there's a mountain range or something like that, right here, and I can't go in a straight line. So what will I do? Well, pretty simple. I'll fly from A, this direction, until I'm clear the mountain range. And then once I'm clear the mountain range, I'll be able to pick up this course to B. I just created an airway. Oh, and let's say this. If I can't fly very high, I would do that route. But what if I'm actually able to fly higher? What if this mountain range here is at 4,000 feet? And I was planning on flying at 4,000 feet previously. Well, I'd have to go this way, right? But if that mountain range is at 4,000 feet, but I'm flying on an airplane that can fly at 6,000 feet safely, or whatever. I'm making up numbers right now, guys. Okay. I could actually fly direct from A to B. But what would I have to do? I would have to be at least 6,000 feet on this route to avoid the mountains, because we have to be at least 2,000 feet above, the terrain in a mountainous area. That's how MEAs and all those things are developed. So you start writing these numbers down, and you ask the local guy, say, hey man, I want to fly from A to B, but to that mountain, how high is that mountain over there? And the guy says, well, Jimmy, that's it's 4,000 feet, that mountain over there. But I've found that if you climb a 6,000, you'll be all right. But now you got to watch out though, because you can't pick up B here until you're at least 25 miles from A, because that's where B clears the mountain. So then they start putting in changeover points. See that, guys? All these things start coming in because some old dude with a pencil wrote on a napkin and said, hey, here's how you get there. And here's the radio towers you can use to use to make it happen. Right? That should be like a light bulb moment for a lot of you guys. It was a huge light bulb moment for me when I realized, oh, this is actually super simple, how this works. Anyway, then you could say, well, there's a minimum reception altitudes, right? Well, you can't pick up this fix right here until you have this altitude from this point and whatever, right? So anyway, that's how all this stuff was designed. So now, we have intersections, right? So little intersections, and this point here, we're going to call that, Charlie or whatever. So that's how airways were all built. So now we understand how we can use VORs for navigation on airways, but what about if we just want to do something ourselves, right? I just have some random VORs on a map and I want to navigate. Well, let's say my airport I'm going to is right here, and I'm taking off from this airport down here. So this is A, and this is B, right? Well, this distance here is too far for me to go in a straight line, or maybe I don't want to, or whatever. I don't have a GPS. So I can pick waypoints along the way. I can pick a VOR that's right here. Maybe there's one right here, right? Maybe there's one right here pretty close to the airport. So what I could do is very easily fly from A to this VOR, and then fly from this VOR over to this one, and then over to this one, and then maybe back to this one, right? So I could do that. But problem is that that's a zigzag line and not very efficient. So that's why they invented RNAV, area navigation, which you guys have heard of, right? I bet none of you guys have actually flown an actual RNAV system in the airplanes. And you may have. If you've actually flown on an RNAV system, drop a fire in the chat. And not GPS. I'm talking area navigation, the kind of RNAV where you're able to actually draw a straight line from A to B without a GPS in the airplane by artificially moving this VOR to this point right here, moving this VOR to this point right here, moving this VOR to this point right here. You do it artificially. You actually tell the little box in the airplane, hey, for this VOR here, I want to be on the, we'll call that the 220 radial at 27 DME. So what it does is the little box does all the math and basically moves this VOR to here so that whenever you plug in, your course, which would be, let's say it's, a 320 or something like that, you plug 320 on your CDI right here, 320, your needle centered, whatever, it would center on this point right here. It's really awesome. And then from there, you'd fly outbound. It literally makes the VOR think it's right here. Same when you get to this VOR here, plug the frequency in, and that's going to be, 040 at, 12 DME. Plug that in there, the DME centers and whatever, and you can fly straight lines. Really, really cool. Drop a fire in the chat if you did not know that. At least not know that that's how RNAV was first formed. Yeah, it's pretty common. There's 2 people that said it, 20 of y'all in the chat. There we go. There, that's more realistic. Okay, cool. I believe those numbers because no one taught this to me when I was doing my instrument training. I had to figure it out by watching YouTube videos and reading books and stuff. But this is basically how it all came to be, right? So anyway, I got to fly with one of these systems one time and it was really cool. So all this to say, VORs actually mean something. And if we can understand how they work and how to fly them efficiently, we'll be much better as instrument pilots. Now, in the real world these days, we don't actually use VORs very often unless we're shooting a VOR approach for either training or if there's, no other approaches at the airport. But there's very few places in the United States anyway that do not have RNAV that would have a VOR as an alternate. But they do exist. So anyway, all this to say, we use radio signals to navigate. So let's get back down here to something a little bit more practical. Instead of theory, let's go into how do we actually use this stuff. So there's a VOR, and whether I am trying to navigate on an airway or if I'm trying to navigate on a specific radial, like for a VOR approach, I have to know what I'm going to be using this VOR for. So let's say an example. Let's say that I am going to be flying an approach that involves a VOR. Okay, and let's say the VOR is the missed approach point. So let's say the runway is, right here. We'll say that the runway is right there, and the VOR is this circle, and the final approach course is this. Basically, I know based off of the chart that I read, my minimums, tell me, hey, my minimum is 500 AGL, and you got to be on, the 152 course or whatever. How do I use this information to get down safely? How do I navigate to this? All right, so we have to, in order to figure out how all this stuff works, we have to go even a further step down and figure out how to navigate with VORs. So in order to go to a VOR, the step 1, all right, is to tune the frequency. Easy. So tune, right? Tune and identify, make sure it's the correct VOR. You guys should know how to do that already. If not, ask your instructor. Once you tune and identified, and you know that you're going to the VOR, what I want you to do is you have one of 2 options. You can either select the course that you want to fly to the VOR, which could either be direct, or you can select a course that is not direct, but you would go fly to that course. So here's the example. let's say that I am somewhere over here. This is me, or in this case, it might be you, okay? I'm somewhere over here. I want to go to this VOR, but either because it's procedure or because air traffic control told me to, I am going to go to this VOR, but I'm going to go to it on a course of 320. So this is, see, 320 inbound. All right. What I'm going to do is I'm going to tune my frequency, or sorry, not tune. I'm going to tune my VOR to 320 inbound. Now, what's it going to show? Like, what's it going to show on the device? I am going to share my screen on my laptop and go over here to show you a real life example of what that looks like. Can everyone see the panel here? Okay. Right. Cool. Wonderful. Move my little chat here around so I can see what I'm doing. All right. That's fine, Eric. I see what you're saying. Okay. Awesome. So I'm going to take the airplane. We're going to move this airplane over here. Okay. And we're not worried about the heading of the airplane, guys. Remember, heading does not make a single difference when we're operating with VORs. All we care about is the radials, not our headings, because this airplane does not matter what its heading is. If I spin its heading all the way around, the VOR needles don't change. See, I mean, nothing changes. So heading does not matter. Let's say I want to go to VOR1 and I want to go to it on a 320 course. Easy. I just go to my Omni bearing selector and I select a course of 320. Just like that. So given what I see right here, I have all the information to tell me what headings or course do I need to fly to get to that VOR. So I know based off of this right here that if I fly a 320 course, I will be going to or towards the VOR. Now, in this case, if 320 is, say, out here, like this direction, okay? 320 is that direction. That makes sense. I'm over here. If I was to fly a 320 from this direction, I might not go direct to the VOR, but I'm at least going towards it. See? Now, what am I actually going towards? I'm going towards this line. That line represents the point at which you would be going past the VOR and now going from it. Do you understand? Like, everyone's totally on board with that. My little flag here is going to say 2 when I'm on this side of the VOR. And as soon as I cross that line, every VOR has this, right? You're going to say a from indication, and it will have an arrow pointing back towards the VOR instead of like this on the other side. Cool, we get that. But that being said, if I fly this course from my current position, I'm never going to hit the VOR. And in fact, I'm going to be paralleling it the whole time. I'm going to be northeast of the VOR the whole time. So, or east-northeast. How do I know that? Well, by looking right here, I can see the VOR is on the right side of the CDI. I'm sorry, the left side of the CDI, which is this direction. So I need to fly that direction to get to that radial, which means obviously I'm on this side. I am northeast. See, I am north, which is here, and I'm east, which is here. So I am northeast of that radial. So I obviously need to fly southwest to get to that radial. That's how you use a CDI to visualize where you're at. I'm going to say that one more time because I need you guys to really understand that. It's a very common error on instrument training, check rides, whatever. To navigate with a VOR, I've tuned in the 320 course. This is what I want to fly. I want to join this line to this VOR. And then once I'm on that line, I want to keep flying it this way. I plug it in. I see the line is on the left, which means I need to fly some kind of heading on this side of the compass rose to get to that VOR. So in this case, I'm going to start asking a couple questions here to kind of gauge some understanding. Tell you what, Darlene, we'll ask you the first one. What heading, if there's no wind, what heading do I need to fly right now to make this airplane join the 320 radial, or sorry, the 320 course, I should say, at a 90-degree angle?
240. 230. 230, somewhere there.
None of y'all's names is Darlene.
Yeah, I'd say 240.
That's right. I'm messing with you. No, but yeah,
I
so
couldn't unmute my thing, sorry.
that's fine. That's fine. It's 230. It's 10 degrees off, but close, right? But hey, that's okay. 240. You're the first thing your eyeballs saw was a 24 at the end of that line. That's totally fine. That will in fact get you towards that. Easy. Now let's say we don't want to go at a 90-degree angle because it's too steep of an angle for what we're doing today or whatever. I don't know. We have some reason. We could join at a 45-degree angle. So what I like to do is I like to say, okay, this is where I'm at here. 45 degrees is right here. I'm not even worried about the exact number. I just know, okay, it's between the 27 and the 30. So I'm going to turn my airplane somewhere between 27 and 30. If I fly somewhere over here, I'm in fact going to get to that radial at a 45-degree angle. Now, it can be confusing seeing how the 27 and 30 on the heading indicator is on, the right side of the page, while over here it's on the left side of the page, but you don't need to worry about that. What you need to worry about is the number that you see right here. Isaac, go ahead.
Yeah, I just have a quick question. So in this case, we are going with the headings because we are still having reverse sensing, isn't it?
I want you guys to completely delete the idea of reverse sensing from your brains. Okay, I'm gonna say a hot take real quick. Okay, here's my hot take. All right, reverse sensing does not exist. I'm gonna say it again. Reverse sensing does not exist. What exists is the pilot's lack of understanding over how a CDI works. That's what exists. See, reverse sensing does not exist if you realize that it's not about left versus right. It's about what heading is read over here, what course is read over here. So in this case, let's say I flip it around, right? I'll tell you what, I'm actually going to change the airplane's heading just to make this a little easier to look at. So let's say I take this airplane's heading and I switch it around to 320, just like this. Now my heading lines up, right? So 320, 320, we're all lined up. We can see based on that, okay, well, I'm on a 320 heading right here. Nice. And my course is 320. Nice. Obviously, I am right of course, so I need to go to the left. I need to fly somewhere, over here or somewhere over here, right, to get to that course. Cool, I get that. But here's the thing though. I still need to fly that heading, even if the airplane is pointed the complete opposite direction, right? It doesn't matter where I'm heading. See, that needle does not change. See, that regardless of the airplane's heading, I still need to fly, say a 270 heading to join a 45-degree angle. It doesn't matter, right? So on the flip side of that, let's reverse it. Let's say, okay, the airplane is on a 320 heading, like, we would want to be on to get on course. Let me change this real quick. 325, this is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Cool. 320 heading, sweet. But let's say we have the other radial plugged in, right? And I switch this around to 140. 140. Cool. Just like that. The logic is still the same because now if you look at the needle, you'll see, okay, the VOR is on the right side of the CDI and it says from. So because it says right and because it says from, now the headings that I would fly or the course that I would fly to get to that VOR is now somewhere between this line and this line, which again points at 270. See that? The math is still the same, but the actual course is always going to be the same. It's just a matter of how you look at it. Now, of course, if I plug this in right now and I see, oh, well, the CDI is over there to the right. CDI is to the right. Well, I must turn right then, right? Well, no, if you turn right, you're going to go away from it. Well, that's why you don't think about it as left or right. You think about it as I need to fly 270. keep 270 in your head, and you'll realize that 270 is right here on your heading indicator. You fly that, and you get to the VOR. And does that answer your question, Isaac, or did I confuse you even more?
No, you make it totally easy on that one. Thank you.
Yeah. In fact, I'm going to show you guys, Ming, I see your hand raised. I'm going to answer your question in 1 second. I'm going to show you guys one really, really, really cool trick. Like this, guys, this is something you're going to want to like write down. Like get a notepad out, write this down. This is going to be so cool. I'm going to show you the trick first, and you can write whatever notes you want to write. This is a trick that you can use to tell where you are from a VOR and where a VOR is without having to twist the needle to center. Because most of you guys would twist the needle to the center, right? Twist to a 2 indication, it tells you go to the VOR that way. Or twist to a from, that's where you're at, right? I mean, pretty simple. I can get some head nods in there, right? Everyone's agreeing with that. But let me show you how to look at this right here to figure out where you are in relation to a VOR without having to do anything else. So I wish I could hide the airplane on the map here. That way you guys can't cheat, but I can't. So here we are. I'm just going to move some of these around here. Let's see. I'm going to take the number 2 VOR. I'm just going to move it over, let's see. I'll move it just, right here. Something like that. Like right there, right here would be good. Okay, guys, I want you to look at the number 2 VOR down here at the bottom. Step 1 to figure out where the VOR is. The whole goal right now is where is the VOR? Where's the VOR? So write that down in your notes. Where is the VOR? Step 1. Which side is the CDI pointed to? Is it left or is it right? In this case, it's to the right. So where's the CDI? Where is the needle? The needle's to the right. So because the needle is to the right, we're now going to ignore everything that's on the left. The left no longer applies to us because the VOR is nowhere on the side where the needle is not, okay? The VOR is not anywhere over here. It's only going to be somewhere on the side where the needle is. By the way, if I lost you to this point, that's okay. I'll say it all again in a second, and you can ask questions because this can confuse some people, but that's totally fine. I'm going to say it again. Where'd my marker go? Here it is. The VOR is on the side where the needle is. So the needle's to the right. That means the VOR is somewhere on the right side of the CDI. The next thing you do, step 2, is you look for the to from flag. Is a to flag up or is the from flag up? In this case, the to flag is up. So whichever side that little triangle is pointing to, that is the half of that is the quadrant that the VOR is located in. So in this case, we got a triangle pointing up, which means we can delete all the other side. And none of this down here applies to us. So that means we have to fly somewhere between this course and this course to get to the VOR. The VOR is somewhere in this quadrant, which makes sense because look at this, guys. The VOR is northeast of the airplane. And what heading is this right here? Northeast. Makes total sense. Ming, I'll answer your question in 1 second. Does anybody have any confusion or questions or would like me to explain it differently on that topic right there? You can go ahead and raise your hand. Everybody's good. All right. I'm going to give one more example of that just to double check. Let's see here. Oops, sorry. How do I use Zoom? There we go. Okay, I'm going to twist the needle around a little bit for another example. Let's say the VOR is somewhere over here, and I'm going to twist this OBS to that right here. Or we'll twist it to, we'll go this way. Totally opposite. So step 1, I see this flag is, or sorry, the needle is to the right. So the VOR is somewhere over here. And I see a from indication, meaning the VOR is somewhere down here. So somewhere between here and here is where the VOR is. Does that make sense? Go ahead and unmute your microphones. And if it makes sense, just give a quick little, yep.
Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, awesome. So I'm not going to teach this anymore tonight. I just want to show you a quick little example of, hey, this is what's going on. So that's a nice little way you can tell. So reverse sensing doesn't really matter in this point because all you need to do is fly somewhere in this direction. Now, of course, be more precise and join the radial correctly, but that's basically what you're going to be doing. So anyway, back to the previous example of flying the radials. So if I go here to the VOR number 1, and I tune in 320 radial. I'm going to go ahead and do that now. I go 320 is right there. Perfect. Now what I'm going to do is unpause the simulator, which this simulator is kind of a pain in the neck to use. So just forgive me for making this not work that great. But I'm going to unpause the sim. There we go. The sim is unpaused. I'm going to bring the simulator rate up to 4 times speed. And you can see the airplane moving. I'm going to fly a heading of 240. I'm going to try to anyway. The simulator is a little bit finicky. So I'm flying a 240 heading, or close to it anyway. And you can see I'm going towards the 320 course on a 90-degree angle. Bring the sim speed up to 10. Make it happen a little bit faster. The needle will start moving in. There's the needle moving in. We go to 1 times speed. And now I'm going to turn to, say, 300. Just to go ahead and kind of shallow out my turn a little bit. I'll shallow out my intercept anyway. Now, of course, the closer you are to the VOR, the shallower the angle you'd want to join at because you don't want to overshoot. As you can see, the airplane's coming back over to 320. The needle is centering, and we're doing good. I might overshoot just a little bit, but that's okay. Comes back around. It's overshooting a little bit. That's okay. I'm going to go to like a 325 to kind of get back to the radial. 33 something, 335, whatever. That'll be fine right there. And as you can see, I'm going to slowly re-intercept, and we're good. And now I'm navigating to the VOR. Great, no problems. Everyone totally understands how that works. We're just navigating to that line. This is really difficult to use this simulator. It's not very, it's not a very good sim. Anyway, so cool. Now I'm going to drag the airplane along and speed it up and say, okay, we're flying to the VOR. We're getting closer, getting closer, getting closer. It's getting more sensitive, right? It's getting more sensitive. I'm going to bring the sim rate up a little bit. And it's going to flip in a second. And it's going to go, boom, from indication. Now, why is the CDI fully deflected? Well, the CDI is fully deflected because since you're so close to the station, the radials are so much closer together. So you've actually crossed over more radials since you're closer to the station than you would have if you were farther away. So it's really nothing complicated at all. If you guys see full scale deflection on your check rides and you're that close to the VOR, it's not a problem. Now, full scale deflection, miles and miles away, yeah, yeah, you probably need some more training, but full scale deflection right there is not really a problem. But anyway, you'd fly away. And as you can see, now we're flying on the 320 radial. Now, I'm going to pause the sim and ask a question. I'm going to ask one of you guys in the chat here. Let's see, who am I going to pick on right now? Let's ask Alex. Alex, you unmute your microphone for me. Tell me, Alex, what radial am I on right now? Just, if you can hear me. If not, I'll ask somebody else. It's fine. I'm getting nothing from Alex. Let's ask Eric. Eric, what radial am I on right now? Like, what radial is the airplane positioned on?
So I always struggle with these because I'm not sure which way to turn the OBS to center the needle. I tend just to mess with it like left and right until I know it's going the right direction. Because I see the needle's it's a little bit kicked out to the left, so we are a little bit right of the radial.
Yeah, just pretend the radial centered. Just pretend it's centered.
Oh, if we pretend it's centered, then we're on 320.
Okay, so needle center, we're on 320. Now I'm going to drag the airplane around. If I can figure out how to make this work. All right, now pretend it's centered. What radial are we on?
We're on the reciprocal of that, so we'd be on 140.
Yes, we're on the 140 radial here. We're on the 320 radial out here. Cool. Now, if you want to, we can get specific about, oh, we're a dot off here, a dot off here. That means we're on this radial, that radial. I'm going to tell you guys, in the real world, no one cares about, oh, if I'm a dot left or a dot right, that means I'm on this radial, that radial. No one cares. That's just a great way to overcomplicate things and make yourself even more confused. Okay? It's just a great way to make yourself more confused. What you need to know is, what radial do I want to be on, and am I on it or not? In which case, get on it. That's the whole point. So let's say I'm flying out here and I see that I'm, a dot, yeah, a dot off. That's 2 degrees, right? 1 dot's 2 degrees, right? So if I unpause the sim, which I'm going to unpause it now, I'm flying along and I say, oh, I'm a little bit off there. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and find my way to get back on that. So I'm going to turn the airplane to somewhere in the vicinity of, well, let's say 300. See, 300 is an intercept for that, somewhere between 27 and 30. So guys, I don't even look at the numbers. Like, I don't look at, 30 or 27. I'm like, okay, somewhere between this and this. If I can point my airplane somewhere in this orange, I know I'm going to intercept, and it's not going to be difficult because airplanes are pretty easy to fly. And that's an intercept angle that would work. You just get enough experience and you're like, okay, I'm just going to point at this direction. So that's what we're going to do. I'm going to unpause the sim. And now I am pointing in that general direction. Needle's coming back to center. Now I'm going to go back the other direction. And boom, just like that. We're back on it. See? If it drifts a little bit, that's okay. I'll make a heading correction to bring it back. And I'm not going to chase the needle. I'm just going to stop at, say, this heading right here. Say 310. See, the needle slowly comes back. Once the needle's back, I'll go back to my heading of 320. And we're good. Now, the simulator does not do a good job of holding a heading. It kind of drifts a little bit for some reason. So if it kind of goes back and forth, you know what's happening. But that's that. Does that make sense, Eric?
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. I was just confused about, like, if you want to know exactly what that heading was with the needle at 2 dots out, or like a dot out.
Yeah, I think people are a little bit we gotta stop being so exact. It sounds so weird. People are like, oh, how can you dare be an instrument instructor and say don't be exact? Well, I just did, so deal with it. But people gotta stop being so uptight about super specific numbers and realize all we're doing is flying an aluminum can, probably made in the 60s, with technology that was invented in the 30s, blasting through the air at a couple hundred miles an hour and just hoping it all works. At the end of the day, that's really what we're doing, right? Because if GPS fails, most of y'all are up a creek, right? If VORs fail, it's like, oh, well, I'm just kind of lost, guys. Like, whatever. Just hope I don't die, right? I mean, whenever the word VOR escapes my lips, most people kind of cringe a little bit. I'm like, look, as long as we can point the airplane within a parameter that will not hit stuff, we're good. I'm going to stop my screen share and go to my iPad again. And I'm going to show you basically the top 3 rules for IFR flying. Ming, did you have a question?
Yeah, I have a question. So I just need you to go back to the stuff that you was just talking about. So if you are on the left side, like 2 degree off, and it's the from on the, if the arrow is from, do you still fly towards that CDI or you fly opposite?
Great question. Great question. So this is a mindset thing I want you guys to understand. Stop thinking about the CDI as being left or right. This is not an HSI. If it was an HSI like this, then you would fly towards that needle because it's built into your compass or your heading indicator. That's really easy. You would just, fly that direction and you would go towards it. Left is left, right is right. And see, left is left, right is right, even if the HSI is in the opposite direction. Even if I select the 140 radial, it still shows to the right. So reverse sensing doesn't really exist on an HSI, see? But on a CDI, like on a VOR indicator, like your standard VOR one, like this, it's going to show the course you need to fly to get to that radial. So if I'm 2 degrees off, don't think about left or right. Think about I need to fly this heading here. In this case, I need to fly 060, or I need to fly, 03 or 09. I need to fly something on this side of the compass to make it happen. Now, in this case, 060 on my heading indicator is up here to the right. See? So I will fly 060. I will do a right turn to 060 to join that radial. Does that make sense, Ming?
Yes, now. So if the CDI is on the right and is 210, do you fly 210 on the whichever side is closer?
Yes, yes. I'm going to draw something out here. Guys, I want you to memorize this. Think of this whole dial right here. This entire dial it's a tail, it's like a snitch. It's a telltale. It's something that tells you what heading to fly. This is your think of it this way. This is your heading indicator indicator. This is your heading indicator indicator. It indicates what heading you need to fly on your heading indicator. It's saying, hey, needles to this side, it's pointing at 050, so you need to take that information and plug 050 up here.
Makes sense now. Yeah, makes sense.
Yeah. Guys, drop a fire in the chat if that just put off a light bulb for you, because that's a very common question.
But do you always have to fly 90 degree?
No, you don't. You can fly whatever you want, but 90 is going to get you there the fastest.
Okay.
Yeah, it's a great question. Okay, we're going to go back to what I had
Toby,
written down. Yes, go ahead.
Sorry to interrupt. It's the same analogy if we are having a from indication.
Yes. Yes, it is. In fact, I'll switch it to a from indication. So if I go here, spin it around to a from, I'll just use this radial here. In this case, if I want to go to that radial, I would need to fly that what's it called now? I would need to fly this course here. See? In this case, that's if I want to fly to this radial, I would fly that. Now I'm going to show you something. If I bring this around to, what was it, 140, I think we said? See, if I want to go to the VOR, okay, to the VOR, I would fly, let me show you here. I wish I could draw this out on here. It would make it so much easier. Markers. Here's the radial that we have selected. Something like this. Like this, see? If I want to fly to the VOR, then I need to fly a heading of 050 to do a 90-degree intercept. 050 puts me right here on a 90-degree intercept. That makes total sense. Now, if I switch it around to a 320, let's see here, 320, just like that. Now I'm going from the VOR. See? So 320 from, which means that if I want to go to that radial, I now have to fly, guess what? 050. Same thing right here, but it's on the other side of the CDI because we picked the opposite radial. So it doesn't matter if it's a to or a from. If you want to fly to that radial, you must fly towards that needle. That makes sense?
Quick question. So if you want to fly 45-degree, could you just fly 120? Just for this example.
If you were to fly 120, that would
Yeah.
take you to the VOR. 120 would take you to the VOR. And Deidre, I'll show you an HSI example here in a moment. But yeah, 120 would take you to the VOR because the VOR is this direction. But you have a from indication set. So why would you ever want to fly to a VOR on a from indication? I mean, it's kind of dumb. You wouldn't want to do that. So the best thing for you to do is to take the CDI and to center it on a to indication if you want to go to a VOR. So in this case, let's say 140 minus 2, just like that. We would want to fly, say 120 would be totally fine. But you want to be on a to indication. That way, all of your stuff agrees. And I'll be honest, it is easier to be on a to indication because it is to the left or it is to the right. So you're able to kind of use a little bit of left-right logic. But at the end of the day, it's based on the number. So that's enough talking about that for right now. We've got some more topics to cover real quick. Deidre, I'm going to show you a very quick example of HSI. It's completely the same exact logic. But for you, it's even easier because you just select whatever course you want to fly and go towards the needle. That's all you got to do. You just say, hey, I want to fly the 320. Let's say this. I want to fly the, I don't know, let's pick one. I want to fly the 240, right? Well, in this case, 240 is this way, right? 240 is that way. Well, the VOR is this way because you have a from indication. So if you were to fly a heading of 180 right here, that would take you to that radial and take you from the VOR if you were to fly away from that triangle right here. On the flip side, if you wanted to go to the VOR, just fly this way. Go maybe fly this heading, fly east, then fly this way. Now that being said, it's reverse and your autopilot will want to turn you around. But that's why we have the reverse button on the autopilot. If you join basically the REV, the reverse button or the back course button on an autopilot will allow you to fly to a station on a from indication. So that's interesting, but I don't know why you'd ever want to do that. If you want to fly to a VOR, you should be centering your needle on a to indication and flying whatever number it says. Like right here, I want to go to this VOR. There's a to indication. I'm going to center the needle right there or something like that. I'm going to fly whatever that says. In this case, that says what, 135, right?
Yeah.
So, and let's say, Deidre, you want to join the 140 radial. Well, okay, well, just, come this way a little bit.
Okay.
Cool. All right, cool. Last thing I want to talk about, it's actually 17:02 Central right now, so we're a little bit late, but that's okay. I've got a few more minutes to talk about this before I have to go to my next little appointment here. But I'm going to pull up my iPad and show you guys one last tip that I think you're really going to enjoy. This will really help you when it comes to your flying IFR. This is a big mindset thing. And I found that in life, business, flying, anything, mindset is the most important skill to master. You want to make sure you have this down right. So if I can get my iPad to stop being stupid, there we go. All right. When you are flying IFR, you have 3 phases. By the way, this is like, I made this up. So this is not going to be in any book. This is just me trying to use, stick figures to explain IFR. This is IFR for Dummies lesson 1, right? This is how I teach it. So you have 3 phases. You have your departure phase. You have your en route phase. And you have your arrival phase. Each of these phases basically has a couple rules. In the departure phase, we want to be able to, number 1, navigate. Navigate. Cool, we all agree with that. You want to know how to get places. Cool. Now, we can navigate using We can use our eyeballs, right? We can like look where we're going, or we can use our instruments. Cool, we got that. Or, you could use, air traffic control if they're an option to help you, right? They can give you vectors or whatever, right? But even then, if they don't exist, you gotta divert back to one of these two, right? So you gotta navigate. The next thing you gotta do is really simple. You guys are gonna freak out when you hear this. Don't hit stuff. Like, if you can just like navigate and not hit stuff, you'll be all right. Now you're thinking, this is so simple. Like, why did I sign up for this Zoom call? Like, I'm wasting my afternoon. Okay. Well, you're not. So if you have the mindset of just don't hit stuff, planning becomes a lot simpler, because you're like, okay, I understand how to look at for flight and decide, can I guarantee that I'm not going to hit anything on this flight? So a lot of times people will ask me something like this. Let's say I go to for flight here and I plug in an airway. I'm going to pull up a low sectional here. We'll look at somewhere, I don't know, down here near Santa Fe, right? If I want to fly from Santa Fe Regional down to Albuquerque, right here, well, the en route portion is pretty simple. I've got a VOR here I can go to. I can take this airway along here to this VOR, and that gives me guaranteed obstacles and guaranteed navigational signal on an MEA of 9,000. So if I can get to 9,000 and hold it, which I'm going west, so I need to be at least 10,000. Cool. So if I can get to Santa Fe VOR and I can get to whatever VOR this is, Albuquerque VOR, I will be A-okay. Like, cool, I get that. But how do I guarantee that I can navigate and not hit stuff from departure at Santa Fe to the VOR? Well, that's where I go to Santa Fe and I tap on the airport. Hypothetically, if for flight's not being dumb, there we go. Whoops, back here. I go to details, procedure, departure. And I see, what do I have for departure? What can get me out of there? Because of course, if I don't have any procedures right here, I could just go back to my sectional and look around and say, okay, the ceiling is high enough today to where I know that I can see, these obstacles, this tower here, and this mountain range here or whatever. I can see, okay, well, I'm not going to hit that. I'm familiar with this mountain peak here. Like, whatever. You just look outside and don't hit stuff. I mean, raise your hand if you guys have, or just like raise your hand in the camera or whatever, if you guys have ever taken off from an airport that did not have a control tower on an IFR flight plan, like you had a clearance, you were cleared, you had a void time and everything, and there was no departure procedure. All you did was look outside and not hit anything until you got in the clouds. Like, raise your hand if that's ever happened to you. I can't see everyone's cameras, but I'm presuming some of you are raising your hands at least. So you've at least done it, right? How did you do it? You use your eyeballs, just like I said in that previous image. You use your eyeballs to not hit anything. That's called pilot responsibility. Well, if you don't want to take the responsibility for not hitting something, then you can go to the FAA's responsibility, where they give you, again, the old guy with a napkin back in World War II that wrote down, hey, I bet if you fly this course right here, you ain't gonna hit nothing, and you're gonna get where you're trying to go. Okay, thanks, Bob. Whatever. This is Bob. Bob wrote this. Okay, but Bob is now a Fed. Okay, so. And now Bob, you can take Bob to court if you die. If you're dead, you can't take anybody to court, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? So somebody's getting sued if Bob is wrong here. So in this case, the poke 2 departure, it gives us a whole thing. It says, hey, if you can maintain at least this minimum and you can climb on this heading from this runway and you can do all this, then we're going to guarantee you that you're not going to hit anything. But of course, we're going the wrong way on this departure, so I'm going to find something else to fly. I can find the Tafoy, see if that does something for me. That does something for me. I can get down to Santa Fe and go this way, but again, that's the wrong way. So let's find something else. Let's see the Zeiss. I could definitely do this one. That'd be perfect. See, it takes me off. I can maintain these minimums. There's mountainous terrain in all quadrants, so watch out for that. I'm going to do this, and that gets me to this published route. Perfect. So I will fly this departure procedure, and that will guarantee me that I am not going to hit stuff, right? I'm not going to hit stuff, and I'm able to navigate. Makes sense, right? And it was a combination, right? Combination of using my eyes and using air traffic control and using the needle. Guess what? The rest of this stuff is the same. It's the same for en route and same for arrival. Can you navigate and can you not hit stuff? And if you can't do any of that, you shouldn't be flying. Now, sometimes on arrival, let's say you go to an airport that doesn't have an instrument approach. Well, if you're trying to land at an airport that doesn't have an instrument approach and it is IMC outside, your only options are to get low enough to your lowest IFR altitude. You get to your lowest IFR altitude, right? And then hope you pop out of the clouds. If you pop out of the clouds, great. Cancel IFR, proceed visually, or get a visual approach. If you can't see anything though, well, you gotta divert to your alternate, right? So that's basically that. When it comes to navigating, you've got pilot nav, right? Which is you taking the responsibility. You know, you've got instrument navigation, which is, the FAA does. And then you got ATC, which is kind of the same thing as the FAA. One thing too is not hitting stuff can be done by navigating. Like, think about it. If you use your eyeballs to navigate and to know, hey, if I'm doing a VFR cross country and I'm flying from this airport to, this airport over here, right? And there's like a river that goes around this way, and there's some railroad tracks right here, and there's there's like a big tower right here, and then whatever. You just fly along, and you don't hit the tower, and you cross the railroad tracks, and you get to your destination, and that's great, right? You can do this. This is called I follow rivers and railroad tracks. Like IFR actually stands for I follow roads, rivers, and railroad tracks. So yeah, that's definitely not what it stands for. But I thought I could get a laugh out of you guys, but you are humorless today. That's all right. That's fine. You did not come here for comedy, but I follow rivers. But so yeah, just use your eyeballs and navigate. And then if you can't do that, use your instruments. Then ATC can help you. So it's really simple. And I try to tell people all the time, if you can go in with this mindset, then when you go to your charts and see, okay, what does the FAA say I can do? Well, I can follow the 255 radial from Santa Fe VOR, frequency 110.6. I'm going to fly that until I get to 27 miles away. From that point, I'll meet this intersection, which is named Zeiss or whatever. And then from there, I'm going to intercept the 006 radial to the Albuquerque VOR, which will be a 186 course. I got to be at least 9,000 feet on this airway to guarantee terrain and guarantee navigation signal. And then when I get to Albuquerque, then I can proceed down. And then I say, okay, well, at Albuquerque, what kind of approaches do I have, right? So I'll pull some of those up and we'll get an idea what that looks like. So I go down to here to Albuquerque and say, I'm going to go to the Double Eagle Airport here. So let's see what they've got down there for procedures. Double Eagle, hit details, procedure, approach. I got an ILS down here. How do I do this? Perfect. Albuquerque VOR has a feeder route. I can follow the 013 radial for 11.5 miles until I get to Duddle. Now I have to have an ADF in the airplane at this point. That's okay. Let's say I've got one. I'm using old technology right now. I get to my ADF, I do my teardrop, come back in, retune to the localizer frequency, and follow that localizer frequency right to the runway. And that's it. I was able to navigate and not hit stuff in this whole process. And if you can just look at it that way, and remember, look at it from the standpoint of, can I navigate and not hit stuff if ATC doesn't exist? If you can plan your flights that way, then you'll be prepared for lost comms and you'll have a full plan of what's going on. Too many people like to rely on ATC too much. So, all right. Anyway, that's all we got for right now. Let's go ahead and spend a few minutes asking questions, and everyone can go ahead and just raise your hand in the Zoom here deal, and we'll go from there. Della, go ahead.
Hi, Toby. I got a question. For an IFR written exam, how long is the endorsement valid for? Because I know the written exam, after passing it, it's around 24 calendar months, if I'm not mistaken. But I just wanted to know about the endorsement.
The endorsement, if you get
Yeah.
it doesn't matter. Like it's good. pretty sure. The
There's
written is good. The written's good for 2 months. I mean, whenever I sign an endorsement for somebody, I'm gonna pull up the last endorsement that I pulled up, actually, one that I recently gave. Deidre, did you raise your hand just then? I think I saw.
I have a question about something else. So when you're done.
Oh, okay, perfect. Let me give an example. I actually just signed someone off for a written the other day. Let me see where I put that. I love FourFlight because it has all the records of like all my writtens that I've ever given and stuff. So it's really nice. Let's see here. Let me find one. Doesn't expire. Da, 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 da. Okay, aeronautical knowledge test. I certify that blank, blank, blank has received the required training in accordance with 61105. I have determined that he is prepared for the private pilot airplane PAR knowledge test. It doesn't have any dates on it. It just says I have trained this person and I believe that he is prepared to take this test. It does not have any expiration dates on it or anything. So
All right.
yeah, those don't
Thanks for
expire.
clearing that, Toby.
And no problem. Deidre, go ahead.
So when you were looking at that approach chart before, you said you needed an ADF to fly that approach, but I didn't see it said that it said an ADF required or ADF in the title. Can you just touch on that?
Sure. Let me pull it up again and see what I'm looking at here.
I don't have an ADF, and I think most people don't.
It
use
does say
those.
ADF required on it.
Oh, it does? Okay, I
yes.
missed that.
Right there.
Oh, okay. I was looking at the top.
However, you don't have to have it in your plane because you have a GPS.
Yeah,
If you have a WASH GPS, not WASH GPS, but if you have a GPS that has been FAA approved, then
okay.
covers it.
So same with like DME. If you have GPS, you don't need DME. Okay.
Exactly. Yeah. In fact, you can use GPS for everything except for final approach fix inbound, whenever you have to have like a localizer or a VOR approach or something like that. And then anytime that you're on a localizer, if you're on a localizer, the whole time on a localizer, you have to be in VLOC. And then, yeah.
Okay.
Any other time, like you could shoot a whole VOR approach, the procedure turn and everything, GPS, and then once you cross final approach fix, switch over to green needles.
Yes.
Cool. Other questions? Or actually, Eric, I see you asked a question down here. If you fail the IRA signature, yeah, that's true. If you fail a written test, then you got to get trained for the deficiencies on the written test and then go take it again. So that's true. Any other questions? Anything we talked about today? IFR, anything? I got probably 5 more minutes.
I got one.
Question. Oh,
All right. Raise your hand in the chat because a couple people talked at once just then. Yeah, on Zoom, there's a little button that says reactions, and you can hit raise hand on it. Ming, go ahead.
quick question is for the following the flight plan on the ground. How do I do it? Is there a way you can talk about tomorrow on that one? Before you get it on the aircraft, you want to set up a flight plan before you talk to the ATC. So
we can talk about that tomorrow for sure. Is to do it on FourFlight. I mean, you can go into flightplan.com. You can even call the FAA on the phone and just read to them what you want to do, and you have to give them all of your information, like your aircraft type, and you got to give them a whole bunch of codes about what type of GPS and stuff you have in the airplane, transponders. It's actually really, really intense now. It used to be something as simple as, well, I'm a I'm a Papa 28 Alpha slant golf or slant uniform, and that slant letter would mean you have VOR, you have GPS or whatever, you have DME. But they don't have that anymore. They changed it to the international standards, which is what Europe uses in Asia and stuff. So because of that, it's very complicated now. And I am familiar with how to do it mostly. If I'm being honest, I have to look at my cheat sheet every single time I put a new airplane into my FourFlight, because it takes a solid 6 minutes for me to figure out which plane I'm flying and what it has in it. But I mean, there's tons of stuff, especially when you start getting into like ADSB versus non-ADSB and what kind of transponder you have. But fortunately, there's a really, really good YouTube video on that by Gary Reeves. He's the guy in the pink shirt. He has a bunch of IFR training stuff online. He's a friend of mine. He's a FAA Flight Instructor of the Year 2019. He's also a Master Flight Instructor and a mentor of mine. Very good guy, very good pilot. A pilotsafety.org. He has a lot of videos on how to do that kind of stuff.
Safety.org.
Pilotsafety.org.
Okay, I'll look into it. Thank you.
No problem. Eric, go ahead.
So I got two things for you. First one is, do you think that you could put that video or your cheat sheet on the mastermind stream?
I will find it. Yes.
Awesome.
The
Thank
cheat
you.
sheet is actually already in ForeFlight. If you go to Documents and go to ICAO Flight Planning Quick Guide, it shows all the different codes. And then all you would do is just go through each code and say, okay, in this column, I have to decide, do I have any of these things? If the answer is yes, and you put whatever code it says in there. Now, you'll still need a little bit of instruction on how to do those. Because there's some things that you're just not going to know. They just won't. Like I didn't know half this stuff when I was an instrument instructor with probably 2,000 hours of dual given before I knew how to do it, how to do this particular IKO stuff. It's like they just changed it like a couple of years ago. So I was like, what? I was like, you have to do this? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, well, my bad. So it goes to show it's not the end of the world, but you definitely need to understand how it works in these days because there's so many things in there. But
Yeah,
we might.
I'm looking at it right now. Got a little Gulf Stream down there.
Yeah,
Got a lot-
exactly. It's pretty simple. I think, like for example, most of the planes that I fly, when it comes to like the voice communications via radio tab at the top left, it says HF, RTF, UEHF, whatever. I always select V and Y because I have VHF radios, and since I have a Garmin 430, 530, 650, 750, whatever, it has all of those have capability for 8.33 kilohertz. So that is built in with them. You would hit that too. Now we don't have any ATC sat voice, so we'd leave those blank. Data communications, none of that. And data communications, none of that, none of that. None of that. Navigation, well, we have GNSS, of course. And if we have GNSS, that means we automatically have all the other stuff. So we can just leave that one blank. Approach capabilities, you put in L and B. I think there's actually one code that actually covers most of those. I forget which one it is.
Mm-hmm.
Had to find it. That's the thing. It's like this is all super technical, but we won't get into it now. But
good.
Yes.
So
No problem.
question super quick. I was just flying today. I got my second hour of IMC, which is pretty awesome.
It's nice.
And yeah, it was fun. But not even about the IMC. I just find myself when I'm coming down on an ILS, I'm pretty stable until like the last 200 feet, and then I keep trying to keep the needles in. I'm flying on Aspen, so it's the green diamonds,
Sure.
and I find myself getting off at the end, and like I try to make small corrections, but I'm not going full scale anymore. I'm getting a little bit better, but I just want to see if you've seen that before in the last 200 feet, and any fixes for that.
What approach was it?
I was flying an ILS.
Yeah, that's common. So an ILS gets more sensitive the closer you get.
Right.
So if the needles are bouncing around, or the needles are kind of moving a little quicker, that's common. That's pretty normal. That's basically what you said? Is the needles were getting more sensitive, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that's like how an ILS works basically. An LPV will also do the same thing. Pro tip: if you can, fly LPV approaches instead of ILSs because the GPS is less bouncy. Now, if the GPS fails, you're up a creek, but how often is it going to fail? I mean, until the enemies of the United States of America decide to come over and blow up our satellites, I feel like we're going to be all right. So, that's my thoughts on that. So, did that answer your question?
Yeah. I guess I'm just gonna keep working at it and hopefully dial in the skills. I get, like I said earlier, I got my check right on the 29th, so it's coming up.
Okay. Anybody that has that same type of problem that Eric just talked about just then, I want you to watch a video by Rod Machado. It's called Bracketing, the art of bracketing, like a bracket, BRACKETT. Bracketing the CDI is a concept where basically instead of chasing the needle, all you do is you level the airplane's wings with the attitude indicator. With the wings level, look at your CDI and you decide, okay, the CDI is either moving one way or the other, or it's not moving at all. If it's not moving, then that means whatever heading you're flying is the correct heading for that radial. Cool. But if it moves one way or the other, then what you need to do is take the attitude indicator and roll it slowly towards the needle, like it's going away from you. So if the needle's a little to the left, then roll the airplane 10 degrees of bank to the left, and then as soon as the airplane's wings hit 10 degrees of angle, immediately roll back to wings level. So it's kind of like you're doing this, like a little turn, stop immediately. It's not like a set your heading and then roll a whole bunch or set your bank angle, roll a whole bunch and then level out. It's literally dip your wings down, and as soon as your wing is down, bring it back up. And the amount of heading change, like if I do this right here, the amount of heading change from here to here is only like, 5 or 6 degrees. So it turns out to be a nice small correction without you staring at the heading bug the whole time, or the heading indicator, trying to figure out, well, which heading am I on? Am I at a good enough angle? It's just so complicated. The best way to do it is just to bracket it. So I recommend you can actually fly an ILS perfectly with an attitude indicator and the VOR glide slope. You don't need a heading indicator or anything. So it's really, really, really helpful. But I'm going to drop the link to that in the chat real quick. So yeah, bracketing the CDI. Oh, you just put it in there. Is that the Rob Machado video?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes,
that's
sir.
the video you want. That's the one you guys want right there. Eric just put it in. What an absolute unit you are, Eric. You're awesome. All right. Cool. Isaac.
Yeah, just mine is real quick. So I've been studying for my reading exam. I've been doing it with the test prep book. But honestly, I feel that that's just holding to me. Like it's taking me too long to do it through that way. I don't know if you would recommend any of the online courses that's out there. Right now, I'm thinking of doing it with the ground school app from Jason Miller. But I don't know if that's something that you would recommend. Obviously, the regulation sport, I will need to do it from official documentation since I'm down in Costa Rica, but that's another topic.
Okay. So you're saying you're having trouble with the ground school?
No, I'm feeling that I'm taking too long doing the test prep book, like reading through it and doing the test questions and stuff. So I don't know if you would recommend doing the ground school app.
I see. Okay. I've never used the ground school app. However, I will tell you, Jason Miller is wonderful. So if he says it, it's probably good. So I would recommend anything that he's got. I'll also say Shepherd Air, like Ming and Eric are saying, is good for the Shepherd Air is great for trying to pass the test quickly. It really gets that done. However, it is not a ground school. Yeah, Richard just said that. It's not a ground school. It's just a tool that you can use to pass your written as quick as possible. I use Shepherd Air for my ATP and for my CFIs and stuff like that. And it was great. So, but I don't recommend doing it if you're trying to actually retain information. The best IFR ground school that I currently know that exists is Rod Machado's. It's the best. Now, if you can get over Rod's corny jokes, I mean they're slightly cornier than mine. So if you can deal with my jokes, you can deal with Rod's. But he's very, very good at what he does. He's very good at simplifying things. Like that's one thing I like about Rod is he and I share the same vision on if it can be drawn in stick figures, we're doing it the right way. So that answer your question, Isaac?
Yeah, appreciate it. I didn't know about the Shepherd, neither the Machado, one that you mentioned.
Okay, cool.
Thank you.
Does
Appreciate it.
anybody else? Hey, no problem, man. Does anybody else have any questions, comments, concerns, or anything you want to say? Maybe something that you appreciated about the lesson, something that really stuck out to you that you want to be like, hey, that really helped with this or whatever. Go ahead, Della.
I appreciate all the information. I just wanted to ask on the VOR service volumes and all of those. Like, would you be talking about that anytime soon as well?
You can read it.
Okay.
I'm just being honest. The VOR service volumes, it's like it's a picture and it tells you what the mileage is, and they're all designed like that. I don't even memorize all those numbers. I'm just like, okay, the high ones go out farther. The ones that say T on them don't go out very far. And that's all you know in the real world. I have never, ever, ever been asked VOR service volumes. I don't think I've ever. Now, I'm not saying you won't be asked that on a test, but I'm not here to make you pass a test. I'm here to make you be an absolute beast of an IFR pilot, and that will make you pass a test. So again, that's why Shepherd Air is great for just like passing the test real fast. I don't care about that though. Like you do all this stuff and look at IFR and be like, man, this ain't hard. And you just like read the book and do the stuff, you're fine. That's the thing. If you go into IFR training with the mindset that I'm trying to instill right here, you'll find that everything in the book becomes easy and just makes sense. So yeah, it's in the AIM. It's under chapter 3.
Yeah.
No, chapter 3. I don't know where it is. One of you guys can look it up and tell me, but yeah, it's like, yeah. Does that answer your question? I know I technically didn't answer your question, but that's about service volumes. It's like, okay, I would look it up just as much as you would.
All right. Thanks, Toby.
No problem, man. Eric, go ahead.
Yeah, last thing for me, just wanted to say thanks for doing this for everybody. It's exciting to see you grow your content and like grow the channel with the other guys too. And also, just random question: what does the panel and the citation look like? Are you working with anything super crazy, or is it mostly steam gauge?
It's the dinosaur. We've got dinosaur everything except for we got dual Garmin GTN 750s, and that is ooh la la. That's like that's good stuff right there. 750s are wonderful.
Dual 750s.
Mm-hmm.
That's crazy.
Yeah, it's nice. Now the one on the right side doesn't have the barometric pressure settings and stuff in it, so I have to use the pilot one to set all that stuff up. But we both fly the airplane as PIC, like whichever one, it doesn't matter. But we just swap seats every other leg because it's like, well, why not? But we could fly the plane single pilot, and we do periodically, but insurance likes it when we fly together. So
definitely,
that's good stuff.
Cool.
All right,
Thanks,
well,
man.
no problem. All right, guys. Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Central Daylight Time, we're doing this again. I've got a list of questions. If you are in the IFR Mastermind community, you'll be able to go in there and write down your questions or topics that we can talk about today. We spent a lot of time on VORs, and I really hope that stuck with you guys on the VOR stuff. We kind of went a different route than most people go when teaching VORs. I'm like, look, what is it really? It's an antenna that shoots out a signal. You can pick which one you want to follow. That's what it is. So if you understand that and you realize, okay, well, if you're on this side of the VOR, it's going to say this way is the VOR. If you're on this side of the VOR, it's going to say that way is the VOR. And once you understand that, it's a matter of look at the gauge. The gauge says you're going to fly this course, or you're going to fly this course, fly this course. You just fly it, regardless of your heading, right? Doesn't matter where you're headed. What matters is what's the little dial say. Now, if you're a Deidre and you got HSI, it's even easier. So,
Toby,
anyway, yeah.
Sorry to interrupt here from following you from Peru. Are we going to be able to see this lesson again on YouTube?
Yeah, I'm gonna put it on YouTube. Let's see. I've got to actually go to like a little get together we're having with some friends tonight, so I'm not gonna put it on tonight. But I will put it on tomorrow morning, and I'll upload it and I'll put a link in Instagram. It'll also be for those who are in the IFR Mastermind. It'll be there too. That's the thing. The whole purpose of this is to give you guys who have not subscribed or become a member. It's not really a subscription. It's a membership, like their membership dues. It's not like a service you subscribe to. It's a continuing education membership forum, right?
How do I find that membership link? Is it on the email that you just sent, or do I DM you on Instagram?
I think it's if you DM me the word link, I'll send it to you automatically. I have the DM set up to where it just like automatically sends people's stuff when they ask for it, because there is no way I can sit in the DMs and answer 26,000 requests for link. It just doesn't, it ain't happening. But I try to message everybody in the DMs and just get to know people and see what's going on. But even then, it's hard to be like, "Hi, are you a pilot? Are you a CFI? What's your deal?" You know, it's just it takes forever. So I've actually got a guy that I hire and I say, "Hey, dude, just like these 1,000 people, send them a hey, what's going on message, and the ones that reply to me, I'll talk to them." So I don't know, but so there's that. Good stuff, guys. If you're not a member of the mastermind yet, the whole purpose of this community or this call here is for those who are not in the mastermind to see an example of what some of our calls look like. Everyone's a little bit different. This is the third one that we've done in this format, and it's great. So if you guys want to experience this one more time to see what's going on, tomorrow we've got another one, 9 a.m., and then we'll go from there. So if you're a member of the mastermind, go ahead and put in your questions on that next post and we'll go from there. So not the same link. It's going to be a different link. It's actually in the email I sent you, and you'll have access to that. So in the meantime, I'll see you guys later. Thanks for all coming. And
Will this
Have
one
a
be on the IFR Mastermind today or no?
no, it'll all be tomorrow because I've got to go to a get together we're having.
Okay, it's fine. Just wondering. Thank you.
No
All right.
problem. All right. We'll see you
Have
guys
a good
later.
weekend.
Thank
You
you.
too. Peace.
Thanks.
Peace. Yes, Isaac, if you're still here, tomorrow will be a different topic, unless someone asks a question on it. All right, closing out Zoom. See you, fellas.